A lot of times on this channel, I will cover stories that make me angry. I will cover left-wing policy with terrible consequences, and I will talk about the victims of this policy. Sometimes I will highlight them specifically, and it will really get under my skin, and I will advocate for you guys to reach out to your representatives and try and do what is necessary in order to produce that change. However, other times, I just kind of have to stand in awe of what we're seeing on display in these left-wing cities, of how dumb a left-wing policy can actually be in theory, and then it's implemented, and the consequences are worse than you can possibly imagine. In this video, we're going to talk about how Baltimore is being negatively impacted by a state law signed in Maryland that basically makes it impossible to charge offenders of a certain age for a crime, period, point blank, no matter how much they offend. And in this particular case, one 11-year-old boy is so criminal, so insane, such a little mini joker that is actually destroying the entire system and making the left-wing progressive district attorney that took over for the area of Baltimore freak out and demand some tough on crime policies. This kid's crime spree is so epic that it's turning the woke district attorney, who was highlighted and praised by organizations like the Innocence Project, into tough on crime conservatives, because it's just madness in the streets of Baltimore. But before we get into that, this video is sponsored, so let me toss it to the sponsor, then I'll bring it back over here and we'll discuss it on the other side. Ever wonder how seemingly overnight this channel transitioned from a maybe 2-3 times a week kind of YouTube channel to posting basically daily? Well, I'll let you in on a little bit of a secret. I actually have been cheating. Now, I used to use the traditional ways that you're all familiar with. You wake up, you have coffee, you drink it a bunch, you use that caffeine energy in order to operate and do your job in a semi-productive way. Then I'd crash at night, get horrible sleep, wake up, do the same thing. However, now what I like to use is C60 Evo. This amazing formulation, which comes in a variety of different things, can help me boost my energy naturally. Now, my favorite product from C60 Evo still is this olive oil energy supplement. It actually gives me the energy throughout the day from just a teaspoon a day, and guess what? It doesn't disrupt my sleep. And the great thing about C60 Evo is that it's all organic. It's all good stuff, pure ingredients, and they have a variety of different products, including anti-aging products, to help you get through the day. On top of that, you can support this channel by supporting C60 Evo. If you go to c60evo.com/AJW and use promo code AJW, not only will you receive a discount, but on top of that, you'll be supporting me and boosting your energy. Check out their products. They have some amazing anti-aging facial stuff. I definitely recommend one drop a day on the skin, restores that youthful glow. That is c60evo.com/AJW. Use promo code AJW.
45 News exclusive report is revealing an 11-year-old was arrested in connection with more than a dozen car thefts across our region.
So the intro to this story is not hyperbole. The intro to this story actually undersells what's going on, because this same 11-year-old is actually responsible not just for the dozen car thefts, but for 17 total encounters with police that under normal circumstances would lead to an arrest and lead to some kind of juvenile proceedings. Now, the criminal justice system wouldn't go insanely hard due to the young age. However, if it weren't for this new Maryland state law that actually just makes it impossible to charge kids of this age with anything to any degree, they would be able to do something. But we're going to see the power of progressive policies in action, and I just want you to understand that in the city of Baltimore in particular, youth crime like this is on the rise. So this is just one insane example among many that was highlighted by Fox 45 Baltimore that is actually indicative of an insane spike in juvenile crime in Baltimore and in the surrounding areas.
So now that 11-year-old isn't facing any charges due to his age. Elected officials say the juvenile justice system isn't functioning the way it should be.
Our problem is the system, and the laws just aren't working.
So that right there was Ivan Bates. If you guys are familiar with my video series on Adnan Syed, who by the way is incredibly guilty and obviously so, and the documentary that was trying to propagandize people into believing that Adnan is innocent. That documentary was actually advocating for the election of him because he was even softer than the district attorney at the time, Marilyn Mosby, who, by the way, is facing corruption charges right now, that ultimately ended up freeing Adnan Syed. This guy is more progressive, more woke, more anti-criminal justice policy, yet he is doing interviews on the local news trying to fix the local policy implications of this statewide implementation of soft on crime policies. He's completely inverted on this issue now that he is the state's attorney for this area, and he has to deal with 11-year-olds essentially destroying the city of Baltimore in ways that are even unique for the city of Baltimore.
From Essex to Dundalk, even touching Baltimore City. An 11-year-old picked up by Baltimore County Police 13 times for stealing cars since May 31st.
Again, the story just gets more and more absurd as you hear it. This person has been arrested more than a dozen times for car theft since May 31st of this year. I'm currently filming this video in August, before August 31st. So we're talking about a crime spree that basically went unchallenged over the course of just 3 months. 3 months, this kid from Baltimore, this 11-year-old, has completely obliterated the system, destroyed woke ideology, and turned, again, soft-on-crime progressive prosecutor Ivan Bates into somebody who is all of a sudden reasonable because he can't do his job due to the fact that kids in and around this age can do whatever they want and face literally no consequences. Not reduced consequences or anything like that. Actually, zero consequences for their crimes. This kid has stolen, committed grand theft auto 13 different times, and is actually not legal for them to charge somebody of his age with grand theft auto, so each and every time, he just gets released to the custody of his mother.
Fox 45 News obtaining these police reports, providing some insight into the string of car thefts. On August 17th, just after 4 p.m., someone was driving a Kia SUV erratically near Clipper and Wilshire Roads. Police say it was the 11-year-old. He was driving on the wrong side of the road, trying to evade police, eventually crashing into another car near Essex Elementary School. Because he's 11, he was released to his mom.
So what's amazing about this is if you actually pause and read what is on the page, you find out that not only was this kid driving on the wrong side of the road, not only was this kid doing this in and around an elementary school, not only did he crash into another poor unsuspecting vehicle, so he totaled a car that he stole from somebody, a Kia. By the way, these are very inexpensive cars, even though they have that theft glitch, so he probably stole that from somebody who is not well off particularly, but he was driving at an insanely high rate of speed. And this is the point where I need to ask you guys a basic question. Going soft on youthful offenders is supposedly to be good to the youths in these urban areas that have been challenged. How does letting a criminal youth like this continuously reoffend, continuously drive at high rates of speed on the wrong side of the road, evade police officers, and get into car crashes like this actually help this youthful offender? Sure, it will prevent him from being in jail, but the thing is, eventually on the path that you're going on, if you're this young man, you're likely to end up dead in a car crash in the very number of police chases that you ultimately ended up getting involved in. Also, I just want to point out, if there's no consequences for being arrested, if the police just drop you off at your mother's house, why are you running from the police? Why don't you just surrender? Obviously, this is being done for the thrill of it, for the fun of it, and this kid doesn't give a damn about anybody that he hits. Imagine that you have a child that is at that elementary school, age 11, by the way, the same age as the perpetrator, and that child happens to be in an area trying to cross the street or whatever when things go off and this kid ends up hitting that child. He already hit a car in this instance, could have caused serious injuries or death to the vehicle that he hit, and people are treating this like it's normal. Maryland state law protects this criminal, and he's completely destroying the city of Baltimore and the surrounding areas.
Just before the first call came in about that speeding car, the 11-year-old's mom called police, warning them her son was driving a stolen red Kia SUV.
So the mother knows what's going on to a certain extent. The mother called the police before they got the report of the the speeding car to tell that police officer, to the dispatcher, that her kid had stolen a car and here was the color of the car. So this mother has absolutely no control over her child, and his crime spree is even more epic. Remember, we're still in August, we're still in this month, and we're about to move to another crime that occurred on August 11th. So 6 days prior to this accident, this kid stole another car and was doing the same exact thing.
The same kid picked up on August 11th, arrested in connection to a stolen Hyundai that was recovered in Baltimore City, immediately released to the family. He was picked up again on August 7th. Police writing in the report that all juveniles arrested have been connected to multiple car thefts and attempted thefts in Baltimore County and Baltimore City.
So this is absolutely crucial, and again, it goes to my broader point that this is not just this kid in particular, but it's an overall group of youthful offenders that are taking advantage of the soft on crime laws that actually just cannot be charged. He was picked up, again, August 7th. We're still in the month of August, for another stolen car with other kids in the car, and they all had similar histories that were not being prosecuted due to Maryland state law. So essentially, you have an elementary school to junior high school group of kids that are repeatedly stealing cars, being in dangerous situations, putting other people at danger, and there's nothing the police can do under state law other than drive these kids from the accident scene, from the crime scene, back home and say, hey, ma, you should watch out for your kid because your kid is repeatedly stealing cars. This is obviously a disastrous system. I understand the Kia Boys trend is real, but again, you're not helping these kids by not having any consequences for them at this age when they're repeatedly committing crimes and such dangerous crimes.
Hours later, the 11-year-old is picked up again and again released to family. Officers picked him up on July 15th and wrote, due to his age, he was released without charge. In an early July police report relating to a car break-in, police recognizing all three juveniles involved seen in surveillance video, including the same 11-year-old.
Again, we're not even past July, and we already have about half a dozen police reports, and multiple of the reports say that not only is this kid a regular that the police are familiar with, but the other kids in association with him are also familiar to the criminal justice system. Who are we helping? Who are we assisting other than the criminal with this stupid law?
But officers write, no interviews can be completed due to MD juvenile law.
That law is terrible.
And again, we're going to have Ivan Bates, of all people, the most woke prosecutor who ran in that Democratic primary where Marilyn Mosby was present, talking about how this law needs reform because the police can't even interview these kids.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates.
You have victims who struggle to make the car payments, struggle to pay the insurance, doing what they can, and here comes a young kid, a child, stealing their car because it's a game.
Look, I gotta give credit where credit is due. Bates is horrible. The crime rate in Baltimore is completely out of control. Their actual solving rate, their clearance rate, has been going down dramatically, and investigations have shown that they're using special clearance in order to bolster their rate, and if you take that out, it's actually even worse in the city of Baltimore. But even he, this progressive, even this guy, who's sponsored by the Innocence Project, an absolutely terrible organization, realizes the error of the state of Maryland's ways, and he realizes that he as a prosecutor can't even do the job of pretending to be ultra woke when a bunch of children are running around stealing cars and ruining people's day-to-day lives. And again, I give him credit for talking about how people are struggling to make payments on these vehicles only to have them stolen, broken into, or similar by 11-year-olds who can never be held to account. And surprisingly, Ivan Bates actually proposes a solid solution later on in this video, which we will discuss, we will talk about, because it's absolutely crucial that we get movement from people within the Democratic Party, because I got news for you, in the city of Baltimore, there is no Republican Party effectively.
Says those juvenile laws simply aren't working.
There's nothing the law will allow us to do to hold them accountable, and they're doing whatever they want. If you have 11 or 12 contacts with the criminal justice system for the same exact offense, you're competent enough to steal a car, but you're not competent enough to understand who the judge is, who the prosecutor is, or who your defense attorney is. We got to get real and realize we have to hold young people accountable.
Yeah. Is that not wild? Is that not insane to hear from Ivan Bates knowing the context in which this man was elected, knowing who this person is at his core, he sounds like one of the more sensible people in the country in terms of the criminal justice issue. Now, I will say, since he's not going with the progressive line, that there are some progressives who will still argue that these 11-year-old kids are stealing cars and crashing them in and around elementary schools, and by the way, sometimes getting released to their parents and then stealing another car the very same day in order to provide food for their family because they're just Aladdin. So I will say, I'm sure there's a progressive contingent out there that will still defend this, but even for Ivan Bates, this is a bridge too far.
Bates taking issue with the Juvenile Restoration Act and the Juvenile Interrogation Act. The first, preventing these young kids, like the 11-year-old, from facing some charges like stealing cars. And the second,
we can't speak to any of them unless we talk to their attorney,
which he says can hinder or even halt investigations from moving forward.
We cannot do our jobs because our hands are constantly being held in a way that we just can't.
Now look, I'm big on defendants' rights. I want them to have the best chance possible, and if you ask me, I would tell you not to talk to the police and ask for a lawyer immediately. However, and this is incredibly crucial, normally the way the juvenile system works is they bring in your parent, and your parent would determine whether or not you're going to grab an attorney or you're going to speak to the police. But the Maryland law appears to take that decision out of the hands of the parent and put it on an attorney, so what you end up with is these crime sprees and no opportunity to even negotiate some kind of a deal for one of these kids in order to effectively get these other kids off the street. Essentially, Baltimore, the home of the Stop Snitching movement, has instituted this in their juvenile justice system, and even woke public defender, defend the defendant, in all instances, Ivan Bates, district attorney, can't handle it. Even Ivan Bates has said this has gone way too far.
The laws may have good intentions, Bates said,
but young people have taken total advantage of the law.
Adding, it's time for change. With an upcoming juvenile justice hearing scheduled next month, lawmakers in Annapolis are starting to review the current laws, but Bates wants more.
If we start looking to parents and holding the parents financially accountable for their children's actions, maybe the parents will start looking at what their children are doing a little bit more.
Look, again, I have to give credit where credit is due. I have to be 100% honest with you. I have to tell the truth. I can't stand Ivan Bates. The way that he simped for Adnan Syed, I found disgusting. The way that he's aligned with the Innocence Project, I found to be absolutely shameful. But you know what? If your kid is released into your custody because it's impossible to charge your kid, and then same day, same week, same month, which by the way are all true and all happened with the 11-year-old that we're talking about, he's out there committing the same crime with a bunch of other kids, putting other people at danger, then yeah, you as the parent should be held responsible. I don't give a damn that in one of these instances, the mother ended up calling 911 one time. I don't give a damn that she thinks that her 11-year-old can run the show and she can't say anything to him. She needs strong incentives to hold her accountable for the actions of her child. Just like if your child did something, if your child destroyed something, if your child acted inappropriately in almost any other state in the union, how you, the parent, would be held accountable for that child. If you break a $5 glass jar in a store and you're a kid, your parent's paying for it. So explain to me why this kid is able to crash cars, steal them repeatedly without any consequences.
These examples of 13 car thefts are just the ones that we found for one kid so far.
Now, as they said, they only looked into the particulars of one kid, but as you saw through the various police reports, what you ended up finding out is that there are multiple kids well known to the police that keep reoffending that are not facing any consequences. There are a bunch of these kids across the city of Baltimore, and they're destroying the city in such a way that even Ivan Bates wants to step up and have change at the state level. But the thing is, the mayor of Baltimore not interested in actually producing change. Later on in this segment, by the way, I recommend you watch it in full. It's almost 11 minutes. They talk about how the governor has asked for specifics from the mayor, but the mayor doesn't want to commit to anything because he's invested in this woke dogma. So while you have Ivan Bates asking for consequences, the repeal of this law that is obviously generating insane amount of consequences, the fact of the matter is the Baltimore mayor is not interested in doing anything, and that is going to lead to them having hearings but not actually taking action for a long while. Now look, I understand how people want to fight for their communities, want to fight for the area that they grew up in, want to fight for America's once great cities, because allowing them to go into decay is a sign of decline for our nation overall. But I have to be perfectly honest with you. You should have left Baltimore a long time ago, and since Maryland has instituted this law on the statewide level, you probably got to leave the state of Maryland until this is changed. Imagine, again, you could be killed, your child could be killed by a crazy 11-year-old who has over a dozen arrests stealing cars, but they can't actually initiate the arrest process. All they did was drop off the kid at home, knowing that they would repeat offend again, and this is something that is debatable about whether or not they should get rid of it at the statewide level. You can't function like that. You can't operate like that. They have gone too far, and they need to face the consequences of their actions. Now, we talk a lot about people voting for stuff and getting what they vote for, and in a lot of regards, Baltimore residents in particular definitely voted for this. In a lot of regards, the state of Maryland has voted for this to a certain extent, but if we're being perfectly honest, I guarantee you if you told people they were going to allow 11-year-olds to steal cars unchallenged over a dozen times, almost 24 times in a 3-month stretch, most people would not have signed up for this. So there is an element of a bait and switch. There is an element of them worried about the school to prison pipeline and all of that, and this just leading to insanely stupid results. But at a certain point in time, when elections come up again, if they don't vote to change it because the legislatures are stagnant on this issue, then yeah, you can definitely assert that these people 100% voted for it, or at least voted for other things that they prioritize above this, which effectively is supporting this. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the insanity in Baltimore and in the state of Maryland. Till next time.